students were able to recover credit through coursework and internships throughout the school year. Because of this and the diligence of our guidance department, none of our seniors were retained this year. So that's pretty impressive. We're expanding summer school opportunities, and we will continue to collaborate with the Hampshire Educational Collaborative, helping to keep more of our underclassmen students on track for graduation. What brings me here tonight is the final proposal of the Dropout Committee to change the passing grade at East Hampton High School from 65 to 60. As you can see from the information provided, most schools in Hampshire, Hampden, and Franklin County have a passing grade of 60. This aligns us with other schools in the area. The proposal has unanimously been approved by the school council and met with overwhelming support by our team leaders. We look at the data from last year, 18 students would have passed 21 courses semester 1, and 22 would have passed 23 courses in semester 2. Several of these students are at risk students for potential dropout or 5-year completion. After researching 17 schools in the area, what was found that only 3 of the 17 have a passing grade of 65, 13 have a passing grade of 60, and 1 uses letter grades with no numeric value. So, we know that failure in the core subject areas and poor attendance are both indicators that students are at risk for dropping out. Like I said, the attendance policy has improved attendance with much of this population, and it is the hope of the committee that the policy change will also contribute to the reduction in dropout rates.
Questions?
Does that affect, I know the MIAA Sports World has rules. Is this anything to do with them, or they still keep their rules for grades and ability to play sports?
Students would have to pass, so, but they would pass at 60 as opposed to 65.
Okay.
Which 3 districts are the districts that have 65?
It's in the packet.
Agawam, Belchertown, and West Springfield.
Yes.
I liked us having 65, even though that didn't necessarily fall in line with the rest of the schools in our district. But I really respect the committee that has studied this and worked on this. And I respect the material that you presented to us. And so I am certainly prepared to accept your recommendation, your committee's recommendation.
Thank you.
Other comments?
I'm not convinced, actually. And I think it sounds like you're doing a lot of really good work without lowering that standard with, since we're not retaining any of our seniors this year. So I'm a little concerned at how that looks, makes our district look.
It doesn't mean we didn't have some dropout before they got to the end.
Yeah. Well, I'm just concerned with, the headline. East Hampton lowers their grade to pass. I mean, I guess my point is that seeing that there are 13 other districts to align to the 60 passing grade doesn't really convince me that we should lower our standard. Because I think that there are probably, of course, I'm not the expert here, and I do respect all the input that the committee provided and all the expertise that I don't have, but I just feel like we're just, like I said, lowering our standards.
Perhaps you want to talk a little bit more about the kinds of conversations you had in your committees, because I'm sure there was some back and forth about that, about whether to keep the 65 or lower it to 60.
I think that there was probably more discussion about that at school council and among the team leaders. But I think that if you look, passing a 70 is passing, an 80 is a 70 is a C, an 80 is a B, a 90 is an A, but a 65 is a D, and a 64 is an F. So that's a little bit out of whack with the rest of the grading system. I think the issue is that what happens when we lose kids because they fail courses. There's always going to be that one that's going to get the 59. But the number of kids who fail with a 64, you know, is astronomical. You know, and that's disheartening, I guess, that a student with a 64 is failing. And I think what happens once the students get behind, they give up, you know, and yes, we do have opportunities for credit recovery and whatnot in place now, and that will certainly make a difference. But I think that the discussion that took place was trying to keep kids on track, that it would be another way to keep kids on track so that they could graduate on time. You know, and we are talking about the at-risk population. We're certainly not talking about, you know, the majority of our students. The majority of our students are going to strive to do a lot better than 60. You know.
And is the intent to prevent dropouts, to keep our children
Certainly is.
in school so that they do graduate and have a better chance at success once they leave our school?
Yes, yeah. And the fact that we're one of the few schools who have a different standard, and I believe it was changed not all that long ago. You know, it keeps us in line. And actually the team leaders, that was one of the things that they really felt strongly about, that if a student transfers, you know, into East Hampton High School, you know, that there's a different standard, and vice versa if they transfer outside. So.
I'm just trying to remember if the change to 65 happened.
I don't remember.
I didn't think ahead of time.
I think under Debbie Carter, but I'm not.
Right, and I'm trying to
yeah.
remember whether I was a voting member of the school committee at that time, and I say that because I'm trying to remember whether the discussion about this is similar to the point that you raised, but can't recall the date, so that's okay. We'll operate. Other comments? So we can have a motion and continue the discussion, but either way, we can continue to discuss it. Other comments?
I guess I just have to say, I tend to have the same feeling that Nancy and LaDonna do about, it seems disheartening to see us lower that expectation and the expectations of our students. But I feel torn, I guess, because just hearing the information, it seems like LaDonna said, you've done so much to turn things around in every other way. It just doesn't feel good to think about lowering our standards. It's not a good feeling, but I on the other hand, also completely respect the expertise of all the people involved that came to this recommendation.
I think it's a little bit about the point that Bonnie was referring to earlier about the diversity in our schools. And unfortunately, we have a lot of students who don't have a lot of support outside of the school. And they don't, you know, maybe education isn't valued in the home. And it's really that at-risk population, that high-need population that
we
this
want
would
to
help.
keep in our schools.
Yeah,
that
and
we
I
want to keep in our schools.
And
And I-
it
go
sounds
ahead.
like Dr. Perone maybe wanted to say something as well.
Can I actually, hang 1 second, Dr. Perone, I want to rephrase or suggest a rephrasing of that, because I think what we mean is that fortunately we have them. Unfortunately, they don't have the support. And this policy is designed to increase the likelihood that they'll be with us and get more of that support.
Sometimes it's a
That's a good way of
maturity thing
framing it.
too. I think that's why we see so much in 9th grade, and that once, you know, the students start to connect at the school and grow up a little bit, then they're more apt to strive for success. But we cut the legs out from under them when they repeat 9th grade, and that's where you see the majority of the failures are. And those are the students that are most at risk for dropout.
So this is an inclusion policy. I know that's a term of art and it has a technical meaning in schools, but this, well, I'll let you speak and then I'll come back.
Okay. I just wanted to talk about in the past 3 years, what we've done to look at rigor and heighten rigor in the school, and looking at the expansion of our AP programs, looking at the fact that we have we've added requirements to graduation. We brought online the world language for 2 years. We've brought online the fact that we have to have math for 4 and social studies for 4. So we've added to the rigor of our program. But an arbitrarily set percentage, 65, I don't know that adds to rigor or takes away from rigor. What takes away from rigor is what adds to rigor is high expectations. We expect our students to fulfill all the obligations of the Mass Core. That's rigorous. A 65 versus a 60, I don't think that's rigorous. That takes a student who doesn't have the support that you give your kids, and it cuts them down. And that's not what this is about. This should be about those kids and us doing everything we can to make sure that they stay in school so that we can prepare them for college and career. And that's what happened this year. We have a dynamic guidance team that had 103 students that were enrolled and 103 students that graduated from our school this year. And that work's going to continue. And that's what we have to do. But I think this gives us an opportunity to maybe say to a kid that got a 64, instead of failing a class, you pass this class. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to me that we're gonna say at 64 you fail and you can't move on now to the next level, the next layer, whatever that is.
See, I don't think of it as lowering our standards. I really don't. I don't think of it as lowering it at all. It seems to me that possibly a way to say it is that we're simply bringing the 60s in line with the rest of our grading scale.
Right, so I'm thinking 10 points for a D,
I
10
mean,
points
every
for a C.
every other aspect
Right.
of the grading scale is in line, but the 60s mixed up here a little bit.
And you know, I think that was a team leader conversation. It might have been a math teacher that came up with that and said just that. We talked about that range. You know, you have this range for each of the other grades. Then you get to the 60s,
Right.
and it's 5 points. Why?
Right, why isn't a 94 a B, for that matter?
And again, right. And I think that's. I wish I had remembered that point myself. That's a great point to make.
Could I ask a clarifying question? In terms of implementing this change, you need a recommendation, you need a vote this evening? When do you go to print?
In order to get it into the handbook, I'm actually delaying the handbook in order to get approval, so.
Do you feel we're not ready?
I just wanted to be sure if anyone had any questions, because I've
Oh,
heard
okay.
a diversity of opinion here, and with the pending meeting next Tuesday evening, whether or not any information could be provided that would help address the conversation that's been brought up. I just want to be sure. It sounds as though you need this, but I also want folks on the committee for whom information would be helpful, and that was why I was asking that question.
I'm ready to make a motion, frankly.
Make a motion.
Yeah, but
Please do.
Okay, I move that we accept or approve we approve the lowering the passing grade at East Hampton High School from 65 to 60.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion or questions of clarification? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstention? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now you guys can go to bed?
And get ready for another day.
Thank you.
Okay.
you.
So, we're gonna come back to the
Did you say
superintendent.
we're can go to bed now?
Yeah, I meant Ann, vice principal and principal.
I'll go to dinner.
Sarah, sorry.
Oh,
So the
Forgot
superintendent
Nancy.
evaluation, what you have in front of you is the document that we agreed on.
The rubric, and I've
Yes,
added a
and
new
then-
piece tonight that I
and
wanted
then-
to talk about.
Right, and then the document that you have from the superintendent is something that you haven't discussed before this evening, so if people have questions about this. But before we go over those questions, I just want to review the timeline, and then I'll review it again. I would ask that everyone return their evaluations, and if it's easier to get it to me at my home address at 8 Brewster Avenue, that's fine. Otherwise, here at the superintendent's office to Sue by the close of business on Monday, so that I can then, after all the various meetings that night, sit with all of them and pull them together. I will have a meeting on Tuesday with the superintendent to share the results. And then on Tuesday evening, we would meet to review the superintendent evaluation. We're gonna go public executive session, public. The executive session is for purposes of the discussion of the raise. And then we have a public session after that where we would announce the decision about the raise. I got that right, Sue? We went over this a couple of times. Yes? Okay.
And
then
that's the 19th.
Yes, and then there would be one other brief item, which would be the RFP related to food service that would be on the agenda on this coming Tuesday. Sorry?
We need a time for the 19th.
Right, we have to settle on a time. I heard tonight the discussion about perhaps meeting at 6 PM. As long as we're done in time to have ice cream
We've
afterwards.
heard that before, so we're not gonna worry about that.
I had it planned for tonight, and then I knew we were in trouble 30 minutes in to our 30/1. Yes,
I know I have an 8th grader, so I will be a little bit late if it starts at 6 because semi and pictures and all that.
we can meet at whatever the committee's pleasure. I am here and happy. I will show up whenever you say, and I will buy you all ice cream when we're all done. I've been told by my dog sitter that the Bear Fest ice cream is out of this world good. And she said that after having
The
had it.
dog or the dog sitter?
The dog sitter. I was not allowed, her parents said you can't pay her, so I gave her a,
So after
Fine
we
ice
turn everything on Monday and you pull an all-nighter and putting everything together and then talk to Nancy on Tuesday, then we're gonna meet and then you're gonna buy us ice cream at the end? Peter,
if you guys
wow,
keep
it's not
expressing
gonna
this
happen.
skepticism, forget it. I withdraw the suggestion. What time do you want to meet? We'll see what
Do we wanna
happens.
stick with 7? Would it be easier for 7, Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, but I suggest 7.
Okay, so all in favor of meeting at 7 next Tuesday? A week from tonight. Does that work, Deb?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Nancy?
Next
Does that work?
And the date is the 19th.
My birthday day.
Is it your
Oh, then
birthday?
we have to do ice cream.
And she wants to have a birthday
I
dinner.
was having a birthday dinner.
Okay, what
I
time,
guess
would a
I'll
time
have
work better for
birthday
your
ice
dinner?
cream.
Do you wanna?
No, no, I'm okay, honey, it's all right.
You
Whenever
sure?
we do it, we fine.
Okay,
I just have, let's go with 7, that'll be fine.
sure.
What time, I'm sorry, I missed the date you said you needed these back.
Monday evening, at the close of business, so 5 o'clock?
This Monday, 6/18?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I
right,
just,
right, right.
I think I'm missing something, clearly.
Sorry, 4 o'clock on Monday.
Yeah, what do I return to you? I
Okay, we're gonna
return,
get to that piece next.
gotcha.
Absolutely, that's what Nancy and I are gonna clarify for you now, because you've got 2 different documents in front of you. And what I want Nancy, the superintendent, to do now, if you would,
This is the most
is
unbelievable
explain the
rubric.
second document that folks have not had a chance to discuss before. Exactly your question.
Okay, so last year, there were some comments and very well understood about, how do you know what I've done and what I haven't done? So I created a document, actually, this was shared at the superintendent induction program, and I thought it was an excellent document, and it's moving us towards what the educator evaluation system is going to look like next year, where everyone is expected to submit artifacts and evidence of accomplishment. So I used this document, and what I did is I took the standards, each standard, and you can see if you look at the front page, the first standard is instructional leadership. And these are the indicators that you created on the rubric. And Peter, if I could borrow your rubric just for a minute, so this is the rubric that you all created for me. And so if you look, the first standard is instructional leadership. You'll see that over at the left. And then I've taken all of the indicators, so there was the curriculum, the instruction, the assessment, and the data-informed and decision-making indicator. Just a brief description of each. And then in your rubric, you've got all the criteria listed there. So at the top, there are the levels: exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory at the top of this document that I've given you. And the right-hand column is evidence. So I've listed all the evidence that I'm putting forth to show my accomplishments for that indicator, for that standard, rather.
Gotcha.
Now, what I'm also going to do, it's going to be new for me, and I'm hoping I'm going to get this all to you by tomorrow. I've created a Dropbox with the help of John Schott. And into this Dropbox, I'm going to put pieces of evidence that you would not have seen otherwise. For instance, the district professional development plan, you don't have a copy of the final plan. And there's a lot of information in there about what we've done in terms of this indicator for instructional leadership. I'm going to put this into the Dropbox. I'm going to send you a link. You open the link, which will open the Dropbox, and then you can access digitally some of these pieces of evidence so that you can look at them.
I'm impressed with that.
Well, I'm hoping that this all works out as planned. For instance, district walkthrough data. I will give you evidence of the summary of our walkthrough data that we used at our leadership team. So some of these you have had already. So for instance, for instructional leadership, I put school committee presentations because, you know, I've presented things to you, as have the leadership administrators about what they've been doing with their school improvement plans. So you've gotten that.
Is that where the number correlation comes in?
The number correlation.
So under instructional indicator, you have evidence, parentheses, evidence 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 9.
Where are you seeing that?
Where are you
Pam?
seeing that?
I'm sorry, on the first page of this document.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Right here,
Yes,
under instructional indicator.
Gotcha.
yes.
Right, so do
Yes,
those numbers correlate
I
with?
need to fix those because I started numbering them and then I thought that that ended up being too complicated and I did not take all of those out. So
So you're pulling them back out, you just,
I'll pull them back out and that page, for some reason, I forgot to pull them out. You can see on the other pages you don't have them.
right, well, that
As I
was what
say,
had me curious, was that they're on some.
I started numbering them and then it didn't really match up as nicely as I thought, so that, I will send this to you digitally as well.
Okay.
Because that way you can mark it up right on that digital copy. So that should make it easier. But thank you, Peter. I did neglect to do that. And then there's an area for comments on each one. And then there's a bar at the top for overall evaluation rating, so I think.
You know, can I back up on, this is
Sure.
gonna throw a big ol' monkey wrench in this, but part of what you've effectively done here, it seems to me, and I don't know if other counselor, school committee members agree, is that it functions very effectively as a self-evaluation. And so the numbers are not such a bad thing to have, because these are places where you're indicating your sense, without getting into the top four, exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, unsatisfactory, but you're saying, here's where I, Superintendent Follensby, look to see whether or not, how I'm doing as an instruction, you know, what
Right.
the indicators are for
Right.
instruction. The language here gets cumbersome. Does it,
So you want me, so that way you can reference back to what I'm looking at?
well, I think there's some merit in having that. We
I can
didn't
certainly do
vote
that.
to say, but I'm not inclined to have the numbers pulled, I guess is part of what I'm getting at.
I can put them back in. The thing that happened is that they overlapped, but, you know, that's.
But it would seem to
that's-
me that they would overlap. I'm not trying to make more work for you, and I'm not trying to
No, it's
provide
not
too much
that.
information for the rest of you folks, but I thought, as I read the way this first page flows, it flows as a self-evaluation that informs our formal evaluation. And while we didn't request or agree to that before, if people are amenable to that idea now,
I'm happy to do that.
I would say whatever's easier for
I
Nancy.
would say
mean,
so too.
number
I
or
don't think it's
non-number,
going to,
we'll figure-
I
so
really.
you can ignore the numbers if you'd like, but
Yeah.
if you find them helpful,
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think you need to do more than you've already done.
so if
Well-
you have a copy with the numbers, please. If you don't, if this is the only copy that's left, that's fine. Don't go do more work, is what I'm hearing the committee say.
I would definitely say don't go do more work.
You know, what I'll do, and I actually, and that's my project for tomorrow, is I will try to find a way, and it may be numbering, that might be the easiest way, to match the artifacts that I put in the Dropbox to the different indicators here.
Okay.
Okay? So that you'll be able to have a reference, so it'll say curriculum indicator, and then the pieces of evidence will be in that. There'll be a folder within the Dropbox.
But you don't have to do that, Nancy. If it adds
Oh.
more,
It won't add that much more. I'm happy to do that. Whatever makes it easier for you all to match up, you know, the
I was gonna
indicator,
say,
the
I think
evidence
we
to
could
the
do that
indicators.
ourselves.
So, does it make sense to you, the document?
Mm-hmm.
I
yes.
think it's great. It's very helpful.
So in the past, like what you essentially created for us is a self-evaluation. And
Right.
in the past, that's not normally part of the routine?
No.
Well, thank you so much. That's very, very
I'm keeping
helpful.
this.
Very
Well, I was just trying to respond to comments last year, and I completely
Right.
agreed with them. You know, how do you know that I've been in classrooms? Well, the walkthroughs are evidence of that, so,
Right.
and you can look at the evidence of those walkthroughs, so.
That's
summaries.
great. That's really helpful.
And I'll put in the agendas for our leadership team meetings, and I'll put in agendas for our wellness committee meetings and crisis safety committee meetings, so you can look at all of that, get the overall picture.
So again, any other questions? I'm just gonna review the timeline. Go ahead.
Yeah, what form, what form do we use to submit information to you?
Well, what I was expecting to get were 6 copies of this document,
Oh, this one, okay.
right? Remembering that these become public documents,
Okay,
right? So this is a permanent public document, so that when you get to page 11, I lied, page 9, it doesn't have a signature spot, but you do need to sign it. So, right, I'm gonna create one. On page 9, right next to where it says School Committee Final Approval 3/27/2012, you actually need to sign your name so that I know which one of these, when I get them, is yours.
Isn't this the one we're returning to though?
no, that's
No,
Nancy's.
that's Nancy's.
No, that's Nancy's giving you information that helps you
Oh,
make a
we're
decision
returning this
here,
one.
This is like a worksheet.
right?
This would be like a worksheet for you.
Okay?
This
This
one
is the
goes
document
to Sue.
that you give to Sue, and you must sign it. Sign and date it. And it's a permanent public record. Just so you know, Deb, that wasn't true when I first joined the school committee. It used to be that everybody gave one to the chair. The chair created a consolidated aggregate document, and that became the only thing that went into the permanent record. Everything else disappeared. That's under the current education law. It's now the case that every individual member of the school committee must sign an individual form. And so I have a conversation with the superintendent about my impressions of what everyone has, but we do not create a single document, right? And I'll do mine independent of seeing yours,
Okay, so we all
Right.
do these independent documents, we provide them to you.
right?
You're
I then have a conversation with the superintendent
based on the collective
based on everything that's
information?
available, right? And she has, a public document, she has access to them as well.
Okay,
right?
do you not hand them? I mean, do you, in other words,
Oh, yeah,
Wouldn't that be
eventually
part
we'll
of the
see
process?
them.
You
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
hand them
we'll
to
see
you?
them, see them
so
all.
you talk about them?
Right.
And then what happens?
Then they inform our decisions going forward. You know, the two absolute votes that we have on a regular and ongoing basis are voting a budget recommendation to the city council and appointing a superintendent. So they inform our decision about both of those things,
Okay.
okay?
And does this happen on an annual basis?
Yes.
Sorry, I just.
Nope, good questions.
Renewing the contract and
Right.
raises.
Well, the
happens every
contract
year.
isn't a renewal because the contract is a 3-year contract. We could vote. I'm not going there. What we're, that's a 3-year contract, because I haven't heard anyone entertain any idea that requires going anywhere other than the fact that we do on an annual basis set the compensation for the superintendent under that contract,
Every year, okay.
right? So we will, and that's what we meet to do next week. So we will publicly, so then when we meet next week at 7 PM, I will provide a summary of the evaluation in public meeting. Any one of you who wishes to add comments to that will do so. Then we will go into executive session for purposes of discussing the compensation for the superintendent for the fiscal year 2012, 2013. We then return to public session where I share with the public the outcome of that discussion. And I have double checked with Pat Carrera at MASC that I'm doing this
Correctly.
correctly, because I'm always a little bit uncertain. In fact, she allowed us to go into, she said that it was okay to do the discussion of the superintendent's salary in executive session. I had initially gotten it in my head wrong that we had to do that publicly, but we can do that in executive session.
And then
Okay.
the first time that Nancy hears the results of that is sitting
we
here
come
with
in.
us
You bet.
publicly announced.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, a wonderful change.
This
Yeah.
public world is so public.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Democracy in action.
Questions about the procedure, and I appreciate all of the feedback, and I know that this is another task at a time when we got a lot going on.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry. So what you want us to do then, for each, you want us to choose exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory for each?
Yes.
Do you want us to just like circle?
As you wish.
Something
You
or
can
com-
circle, you can highlight words, but yes, you must indicate 4, 3, 2, 1
For each
for each.
function,
Right.
and then,
Overall rating for each area.
And
okay,
then when you
over-
get
then
down to
you
the
provide an
end,
overall rating.
right, when you get down to, say, on page 2, it will give you an overall rating. So you will put an overall rating of exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. And then you can add any narrative comments.
Okay,
See on page 2 where that is?
yeah,
And you will do that for each of the sections
okay,
that are part of the document that we create, each of the standards. So you'll do it for all 5 standards, sorry,
okay.
am I right? I always count them wrong. 4 standards.
Four standards.
There's 4
And
standards.
if you don't have comments, you
You
don't
do not have to write
provide-
comments.
Okay, that's
I think the legal requirement is the numbers.
the numbers,
So you could be as brief as just to put the numbers.
okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, so Monday at 4, I will meet with, we have a meeting scheduled, I know it's written down. Tuesday at 4, right? Okay, yep, Tuesday at 4. Yeah, so you wanna replay that whole ice cream conversation now? I'm gonna need that ice cream by then. We'll be wishing you happy birthday one way or the other, okay? We'll get you a to-go ice cream if you've gotta hustle to birthday dinner,
No,
right?
no, dinner will be another day.
Another day, oh, okay, sorry
Another
about
time.
that. Sorry
That's all
about
right,
that.
dear.
Okay, so, now, are you sure that you wanna do the school wellness forum now?
Before we move on,
I'm
just
not
quick,
feeling very well
So we're
myself.
meeting Tuesday, the 19th
Make
at
it very-
7 PM,
Correct,
and it's all about the evaluation.
no, it's gonna be
Mostly.
the evaluation, then compensation,
Right, and then,
then compensation and the RFP on the food service.
okay, all right, thank you. I'm with you.
And any other business matters that, what does it say? That are reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. It's like you're buying a car, right? Liberal rule at the end of the ad, right? Okay,
All right. Peter, I will do a very, very abbreviated school wellness
there's ice
forum.
cream hanging in the balance here.
I just want to say that Nancy Sykes and Andrew Stratton and Nancy Dunn from the high school, who's the health teacher, and I went to a school wellness forum at UMass, sponsored by the Department of Secondary and Elementary and Secondary Education. And in essence, it was about helping us to think about how we look at our current wellness policy and the changes that we will need to make to it to keep it in compliance with the USDA new rules and regulations and the Hunger-Free Healthy Kids Act regulations in terms of what our wellness policy advisory committee needs to look like and the changes to our wellness policy. What we also heard, we thought that we had to have this in place by August, and what we heard is that we really have this school year to plan to bring our policy and our advisory committee up to speed. Now, what we did discover is that we really are pretty close to having our policy in compliance right now. There's really very little that we need to do, but there are some things that we need to do. And Andrew Stratton's talked a little bit about this with us in some of our past meetings. So there are documents in the folder that you can look at. And I guess what I'll say tonight is that, we'll be updating you as we go along, particularly when we get started in the fall. And Nancy, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I don't have anything to, well, yes. I say no and then I'm gonna say but. I think the one thing that we are not up to date on is we do not have a school committee member on the wellness committee.
That's correct.
So that is something we do have to do in the future.
That's right.
Are you seeking a nomination?
No, I'm not. The bug is, I'm not
I know,
waving
he's
my
down
hand.
here
as
and
a-
then he moved in that direction. The bug moved.
But I
in.
think that we can work on that
All
at
right.
a later date.
And just in line with that, our wellness committee meetings are usually at 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, so I know that prohibits some of you from being
Nap
members.
time.
And they usually last for an hour and a half, because that's the time that's convenient for the rest of the committee members who come. So we can talk about that in the fall, actually.
Is that required?
School committee member, yes.
It is, okay, because, I mean, currently in, our policy says if available, but the state is now requiring it?
Yes, yes,
They're requiring one to be available.
that's right.
We could
So-
do it, maybe we could do it on, no.
Well, you could, and it also could be that a school committee member wouldn't have to be there for every meeting. We could maybe, make a certain meeting that school committee members had to be present at. So we can,
We can make that, yeah.
yeah,
All right,
we can
terrific.
talk about this more in the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, minutes. We're gonna get out of here on time. No, we're not.
All right.
Come on, We're
Motion.
way past on time.
Yeah, it's way past time.
Motion to approve the budget work session minutes from May 22nd, 2012.
Second.
All in favor?
Motion to approve the regular session school committee meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2012.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the budget work session meeting minutes from May 29th, 2012.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you in favor, Deb?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
I said aye.
okay. I'm just checking.
Okay, so we're doing warrants and payroll now?
Yep,
Ready for that?
we are ready.
Okay, so.
Because then we have a calendar change after
Calendar
that, right?
change.
And
That'll
that
be quick.
has,
That's
oh, okay, then. They're just trading PV days.
Move to approve the school payroll dated June 14th, 2012 in the amount of $492,908.55.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the school payroll dated 14 June 2012 in the amount of $492,908.55. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated June 14th, 2012 in the amount of $237,590.56.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 14 June 2012 in the amount of $237,590.56. All in favor? Aye. You were starting to slide it there on
I'm
me.
sorry.
I was like, you're looking for the next
Yes.
item.
Oh, my.
I never do LaDonna's job. I can't read numbers.
This one, okay. I have a question after this. Move to approve the school payroll dated May 31st, 2012 in the amount of $476,680.13.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the school payroll dated May 31st, 2012 in the amount of $476,680.13. All in favor? Aye.
Move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated May 31st, 2012 in the amount of $101,507.81.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 31 May 2012 in the amount of $101,507.81. Do you have a question about that?
Not yet.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
My question is, we had established a new procedure.
Yep,
It's because this one is dated May 31st and today's June 12th.
right.
So I was just curious where we are with that procedure.
Finance Subcommittee can update us on that.
Yeah, no, we haven't done anything, so, sorry.
Well,
Haven't
I
gotten a
don't
phone
think
call
they,
that bills are ready or anything.
yeah, I believe that's what we decided.
Right, that they were gonna be available,
Right, and they would
for
get
you.
a phone call when they're ready,
Is-
somebody to come down and,
Correct.
and no one's gotten a phone call or been advised about it. I'll check with Andy on that.
Thank you.
I thought something was hanging
Apologize,
it
I
up.
haven't
Forgive me.
pursued it.
Well, I thought there was something hanging it up, or reason we hadn't done it yet, so.
We have another action item, which is the
Calendar change?
calendar change in some Superintendent, this is just a change of professional development from August 30th to the 29th of March, is that right?
That's right. It was a half-day in August, and now that half-day will be eliminated, and it will be a half-day in March. And this was due to the interpretation by the East Hampton Education Association that 185 days meant 185 days that you get up and go to work, as opposed to 2 half-days making a day. So they asked that we change it to this, which was easy enough to do, because it doesn't change the calendar for students or parents.
So is March 29th a half-day still for the students?
Yes,
And then the other half's the teacher professional
that's right.
development?
It was going to be a half-day off for them, but now it's a professional development day so that they don't come in twice.
So wait, I'm sure that that all made sense to everyone else but me.
Then you stay later.
Okay.
Spicy.
It's not gonna affect my vote
I'm
one way or the
kidding,
other, I
I'm
just
kidding.
wanna get it clarified. So all, well, we need a motion.
Do you want me to try to explain that again?
Nope, we need a motion.
I move that we accept the calendar changes for 2012, 2013.
Second.
Okay, so now I'm gonna ask my question. The teachers were meeting for a half-day on the 30th and a half-day on the 29th.
That's right.
They're now meeting
Full day on the 29th.
Full day on the 29th.
a full day on the 29th. Thank you.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. I'll entertain another motion.
Oops, guess-
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Somewhere out there, Brian is thinking, see, it took a long time, but he finally lost total control. Okay. Tim, you're welcome to join us for ice cream. And Brian, if you want to come by next week, you can too, okay?
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay.